am really excited to present this program tonight, Be the Change Youth Voices, which centers the youth behind the Change the Name campaign on Chicago's West Side. In our 2020 virtual MLK Day celebration, Gamechangers and Namechangers, just 2 years ago, time flies, we featured the young people behind the fight for Douglas Park's name change, and you'll meet them today again. In this virtual program, we'll catch up with these fearless young leaders who have since been featured in a documentary filmed by Cai Thomas, who will discuss the filmmaking process and working with these young leaders, Zari, Ranaya, and Zahir. Change the Name, the documentary, follows the story of Village Leadership Academy students' grassroots campaign to change the name of a park in Chicago from one honoring a slaveholding family to that of renowned abolitionists Anna and Frederick Douglass. The film was created by Cai Thomas and was also a part of the BET Queen Collective Shorts collection and has been in numerous film festivals as well since then. Cai Thomas is a documentary filmmaker and DP telling verite stories at the intersection of location, self-determination, and identity about Black youth and elders. She grew up in Miami's Liberty City neighborhood and is deeply interested in stories rooted in place. Her most recent film, Change the Name, which you'll see tonight, premiered at the 2021 Tribeca Film Festival and is currently airing on BET. Her short Queenie premiered at New Fest in 2020, winning the New York Short Grand Jury Award. Cai is also a member of the Next Stock Collective and is a Sisters in Cinema Fellow. And with that, I will hand it over to Cai, Zahir, and Ranaya and Zari to introduce the documentary.
Well, hello everyone. Thank you for spending your evening with us. I'm really excited to be virtually here with Sari, Renata, and Zahir. I haven't had a chance to talk to them since our last screening that we did, but it's a real honor to work on this film and to document Black youth. And I'm excited for you all to watch the film this evening and for us to talk a little bit more in depth about the process later on. I want to shout out Donnie Sills, who's actually running the camera operators. And the things I want people to think about as they watch the film are what are the names of like streets and parks in your own neighborhood, and if they are historical figures that you also identify with in your own life. And I'll turn it over to the young folks if they want to say a little something before the film starts.
The main thing I want people to think about is how even though the youth often get like overlooked, that we also have voices and we also have opinions and we also know right from wrong. So if we see that, it's not gonna be silence anymore. Basically, it's gonna be a change that comes from it. That's mainly what I want people to think from it.
Renaya?
Thank you.
I agree with Zari, and I also wanted to say that I'm very excited to see and hear everyone's reactions to the video because I haven't seen it in a while, and it's just gonna be a fresh reminder.
All right, and last but certainly not least, Mr. Zahir.
I think that one of the biggest thing I want people to take from the documentary is that kids are the people that make the biggest change. Because when we do make change, people least expect it. So because of that, it takes people from behind, and because of that, like a lot of times adults may if like an adult doesn't change, like tries to change a park name, it'll get overlooked compared to a kid, simply because they don't think kids can do this type of work, and they don't think that our brains can be as functional and developed as they are.
All righty, and with that, I'll turn it over to Sierra.
Yes, thank you so much, and thank you for doing this work, you all. I'm gonna open up the film and we'll take a look and learn more.
A neighborhood, all of the neighborhood, right down to the names on each sign, should reflect the people who live in it. Chicago is all about neighborhoods, all about community. North Lawndale, a Black neighborhood on the west side, is one of those communities that evokes a sense of pride, and its largest park is named after a slaveholder. It may seem small, but names matter. Street names, school names, park names. They should reflect the racial and ethnic makeup of a community. I don't even know that I had thought necessarily critically about which Douglas is this park named after. It's in a predominantly black neighborhood, so I might have assumed it was Frederick. This campaign started in my 5th grade classroom. At our school, students engage in a social activism curriculum. We call them grassroots campaigns. Each year, students decide what issues they would like to address. Douglas Park is named after Stephen Douglas, who owned slaves. We came up with what we thought would be a simple solution.
The park should be named after Frederick Douglass because he was an abolitionist, orator, feminist, and freedom fighter.
Please. Good to see all.
Ultimately, the folks with the power to change the name was the 7 people on the Chicago Park District Board of Commissioners.
The board meetings, at one point, they were really boring. Just sitting there, hearing people present their case. I was sitting there like this, just rubbing my head. When it was our turn, I was so happy. I was just sitting there smiling.
It is insulting to have a park that I love and ride past each day named after a slaveholder like Stephen Douglas. We demand to be heard and our proposal to be placed on the board meeting agenda. We need answers and we need them now.
I know people didn't take us seriously. The first thing that they said to us was, y'all are so cute. I mean, I know it. I just didn't need to constantly hear it over and over again when I'm trying to tell you something serious.
Thank you, all students.
This is a nice campaign. Wonder what will happen to the next one.
Can't wait to see what next year's project's going to bring. Next, we'll hear a brief update on water fountains. It's
I was sitting there like this. I was like, did they hear anything I just said? At that moment, like once I heard that, I was like, I'm most definitely going to keep doing this.
Right. That was so great. Thank you so much for sharing this story and documenting. I'm very excited to get into our conversation. Kudos to you all. You guys are fearless leaders. Like the fact that you were doing this when you were 10 years old and continue to do it even afterwards just shows a testament to your dedication to this project, to the cause, and just to your leadership as well. I really would love to ask you all some questions, both you and Cai, about the process and the documentary. Do you all have anything to say before I hop into some questions? Just some reflections from the phone? Sorry, we got you sideways here too.
I'm sorry, my phone won't stand up straight. So it's like
No worries at all. Just have an open mind, a little abstraction here. Well, awesome. Cai, I want to talk about the documentary since it's something that we just saw. What drew you to the story and wanting to document the Change the Name campaign? Like, how did you hear about it? And how long were you working with them overall?
I, through a mentor, was connected to Bianca Jones, who's the educator featured in the film in 2018. I wasn't living in Chicago at the time. I was living in New York. And my mentor was like, hey, like you haven't made anything in a while outside of like your job. And she knew of VLA and was like, I think you'll be able to find a film at the school because of the grassroots curriculum that they have. So I just like hung out at the school and then was introduced to Bianca and heard about the campaign they were working on. I was like, oh, wow, this is kind of wild that like kids are just like on the subway, like getting signatures and organizing. Like that wasn't a concept that I was familiar with from like my own upbringing. So I met them in 2018, filmed a little bit and made a short then. And then in 2020, when the uprising started and they kind of like revitalized the campaign, Bianca hit me up and was like, hey, I think you should like film. And it wasn't to like make a thing. It was just so that like the school and like the young folks could have the footage regardless of like what the outcome was going to be dependent on the park district. And so for me, filming in 2020 was just like, there was nothing else going on. Like I wasn't working on any projects. I'm in community with these people. They asked me to do this thing, so I'm going to do it. And then when it became clear that like the name change was going to happen, it was like, okay, I should make a new film based on all this new footage that we have. So that was kind of the approach to it.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to ask you all, the students, like Village Leadership Academy really instilled the spirit in y'all to know your history and Black history and be leaders as it was surrounding the project itself. Can you talk a bit about how the learning environment of your school contributed to you all doing this campaign and what it meant for you to kind of keep going on that? I'm sorry, you raised your hand. Why don't you go ahead,
I just want to say that VLA definitely had me develop a new mindset towards the Black and brown culture, because at other schools it was mainly, you know, Christopher Columbus and, you know, all these other people. And now I'm learning about people, I'm still to this day learning about people in Black history that I had no idea about, like the first lawyer, the first person to publish a book. Like I didn't know nothing about those people. And I feel like VLA just opened my mind to more curiosity about it, and gave me more of a eagerness to know like where everything came from in the fact and how everything started, you know? So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Zahir, how about you?
I believe that the one thing, one of the biggest things, the one, but first of all, I think first time I noticed what that actually had something instilled for me for VLA is when I started in high school. Just the first month alone, not only were teachers barely cared about students' grades, like at VLA, teachers literally, it was like your teacher was an extended part of your family. Like you talk to them on the regular. Grades was just it wasn't as serious. It was serious, but it was like it was something. It wasn't something that was talked about in such like a negative tone or things like that. Like it was always something you can do to get your grade up. And even though I'm in high school, there's obviously going to be less opportunities for that. Uh, teachers alone not being as affectionate towards students really showed me how really showed me VLA how VLA was such a small family. It was a community. And yeah, I think that was one of the biggest things I could take away from VLA. And yeah, sorry about
I agree with Zaire because when I got to high school, it's not that I took anything, I took a lot from VLA. It's not that VLA opened my mindset because I've been going there since I was like in preschool. So I already knew these things. And when I got to high school, people were talking about Rosa Parks and how Rosa Parks did this, but not to take anything away from Rosa Parks. I started speaking about Claudette Coleman, and everyone looked at me crazy. And it's like, I don't know about, they just were so confused. So I had to sit there and I had to go through everything that I knew and what grade I learned it in. And I was like, yeah, I went to a private school. It was pretty great.
Yeah, that's amazing that you all were learning those types of things. And it's interesting to hear how, when you went to another school, you definitely felt that shift in how you were treated or the types of things that you were learning. And Renaya, especially you said that you wish that Miss Jones was your teacher, like repeatedly. What was it like to have worked on this project and then gone off to another school and like being involved in school work, but still holding on to this campaign that you were working so hard on even after you had left?
I feel as if Miss Jones was like, it was me in a bubble and Miss Jones like cracking my shell, not even little by little. It was just like what is it, a hammer? Just banging at it. And I finally like broke it. And now that I guess my shell is broken, I just have so much to say and I say it off the top of my mind, whether you know the truth or I know the truth. I just try to say it calmly. But now that I'm like in a different area, it's not always the best thing to say it how I know it. So it's not that I sugarcoat it. I don't sugarcoat anything. I just say it in a different term so that I have a chance to explain it. But yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, you had something to say as well too. I'm glad you were cracked open, Renee. That's great.
Yeah, I was gonna say like about the question that you just asked, Renaya. Um, I would say it's a different transition from transitioning from middle school to high school anyway. So it was kind of hard for me to make time for my schoolwork and then go to the campaign. But the campaign was always my first priority. So if my schoolwork didn't get in, it would get in late. Like I really didn't care because I was just trying to be a part of the campaign. And what was I gonna say? Oh, my teachers actually found out about it, and not everybody think I'm famous for it, but I'm not. So it's kind of annoying because people just be like, "Oh, hey, Zari," in the hallway, and I'm like, "I don't know you," But it's fine. I appreciate it, but yeah.
Yes.
I agree. My human geography teacher was like randomly talking about civil disobedience and brought up the park name. And Imani, she goes to the school I go to, and she was a part of this too. And she was like, "Yeah, we did that." And everyone turned around. Like I sit in the back of the classroom. Everyone turned around and was like, "You did that?" I was like, "Yeah." It was like in 5th grade through 8th grade. It's like it's really fun. You should have really heard about it. I was like, it was on the news a few times. They was like, "I knew you looked familiar." She sat there and she was gonna play the video, and I asked to go to the bathroom.
Yes, you didn't want the limelight on you in that moment, for sure. I want to shift over to Kai, since you're used to being behind the lens and like making this work. Can you speak a bit about the filmmaking process and what that looked like for you? Typically for documentaries, relationship building is super important, even more so working with youth. So how did that lead you to approach it differently or to tell their story?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was built off of the relationship that Bianca Miss Jones like already had with the young folks and their parents. So it was a lot of just like coordinating with her. Like initially at the beginning of summer 2020, we filmed a lot with like Zari and Bianca because obviously COVID was still happening. So we weren't filming with that many young people consistently because at that point tests weren't common and like rapid tests and like all of that stuff. So we tried to have filming be primarily like outdoors. And then just like conversations with parents as we like continued the editing process. And I think what was really important to me is like at the end of the film, we made sure to put like all the names of the young people who were involved in the campaign because like Zari, Zahir, and Renaya are only like a snapshot of everyone who worked on the campaign. So that felt really important to me. And for it to not just be like, oh, these 3 young people did this thing, but it was like, no, it was a larger group of people. Just with the time limit of making a short documentary, you can't really highlight everyone who touched the campaign. And like we still keep in touch. Like I texted Zari for her birthday when I like ran into Bianca. She's like, "Oh, it was Zari's birthday last week." Or like it's funny even now to hear like the high school clout from being in a documentary, I guess. So that's really fun. And just like wanting to continue to be in community with these young folks as they like come of age and always know that they have me as a resource for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And did you see them evolve over the course of filming them as well?
It's interesting because like I really don't like the saying of being like, oh, as a filmmaker or someone who makes a piece of media that's like visually leading, that you like meet a person and you're like, oh, this person is like really affable and will like come across on screen really easily. Like if you would have said in 2018 who I would have thought the 3 lead people in the film would have been, I don't think I necessarily would have chose like the 3 people who are like with us right now. So I think that shows like development. Like I'm sure now it's probably like, oh, you probably thought Kyla, like there was a young person who was like really loud and boisterous, but it's like that doesn't mean you're putting in the work in the same way in the campaign. And it was like, okay, if we're gonna highlight 3 people, we need to make sure we're picking people who are like doing the work day in and day out, not just someone who's like gonna come across on screen very easily. So it was definitely like a evolution, and it was really cool. I filmed with both Zari and Renaya and their moms in their homes. We didn't film with Zahir at home. And that's been really cool to see the relationships that these young Black girls have with their mothers. And then the relationship that Bianca also then has with their mothers is something that was like really powerful to document. And also that, like, you know, they can have access to the footage to share to their kids or their family members down the line. It was really important to me to make the film so that like their work or activism wouldn't be questioned. So it's like, right, Renaya now to her classmate can be like, there's a film that shows this whole thing. Like I have proof that I was a part of this thing. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's super enlightening as well. And it's so great that to see you all evolve from being 10 in the video to even showing and sharing your reflections and the continuation of it after the fact in 2020 as well. I would love to hear if you could talk just a bit about the journey itself, Zari, Zahir, and Renaya, about the fact that there was a 3-year fight against the city, and even seeing that footage where they would be like, oh, you're cute, or go on to the next issue. Like those were many roadblocks, but you didn't back down. So what were some of your strategies in dealing with that? Did you ever feel discouraged? Kind of what kept you motivated? Sorry, why don't you go first, yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, my birds are in the background.
It's
Um, I'm sorry, they distracted me. So, I just started what's it called? Lengthening my dictionary, like my personal dictionary. So like I would use big words that like people wouldn't think sixth graders would use. So, you know, I say bigger words and then they'll start to take me serious and be like, oh, we actually, you know, think alike in the same sense. So yeah, I would use bigger words. I would make sure to keep eye contact because I feel like that gives you a sense of, I don't know, I call it business. It makes me look like I mean what I say. So yeah, that too. It was mostly those two things and having a passion about what I was saying because I really didn't want to lie. You know, if it comes from artificial place, then it's really not gonna stick with you as it would if it was, you know, real. So I just had to keep those 3 things in mind and made sure that it stuck with me and made sure that I was serious about it. And then it was easy to bring it on to other people. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that as well. Yeah, I think people will take you seriously more, especially when you give them eye contact. It's like, I'm not backing down. You're here. I'm here. We need to be in this conversation together. Zahir, what about you?
I think one of the biggest things, especially for train takeovers or in general for people who were kind of taken aback by children, is being diligent. So I remember one time we were train takeover this guy, and he had, I think he was speaking Spanish or something like that. Instead of like backing down and going to another person, we got our friend Enrique who was fluent in Spanish, and he got him to sign some signatures. So yeah, it was a W for us. And but in general, it just shows that if you like in certain situations, if you just like people who may not necessarily look sketchy, but look like they're on their phone or things like that, being polite and maybe walking to them in more of a kind gesture. Surprising, a lot of people who were on their phones who we confronted did actually sign the petition. So it was really just like putting yourself out there and being brave. I think being brave and bold was one of the big things to let them know that we weren't gonna back down.
Yeah.
I wanted to say that one of the things that I think that I did during the train takeover was, in the beginning, I did nothing. I mean, I was there, I held the signs, but people, like my friends, they were talking for me and I just passed out the flyers. But after that, and like I was a little, I wasn't as shy as I was. I ended up like, you could see people walking and I tried to match their pace. And no matter how many times I messed up, I tried to keep matching their pace because as long as you caught up with them, they'd have to give you some attention. So I matched their pace. I set the memorized script that's in my head and I tried to pass on the flyer. Some people turned me down. The first time I got turned down, I took it to heart and I like took it there. I still gave them the paper though, but I walked away and like chilled out for like 2 minutes and then got back up and did it again.
Yeah, and that's a lesson for anything in life, when you aren't able to get across or have something work out in the way that you wanted to, you have to keep trying and trying again. And I think that's just a testament to this project overall. And I really liked in the film, Zachary, you said that there were like rejection circles, so you all would like prepare ahead of time for rejection. What was that like?
Oh, it was pretty fun. But basically, what we do is take time in class. Grassroots campaign. Usually around like the end of class, and basically we all gather up in a circle, and one person will go in the middle of the circle, and they'll go around asking, could you sign this petition, whatever they may be asking, and the other person has to say no. Some people will say it nice, some people may say it aggressively, some people may say it in a funny way, but the whole point is to be able to not take it personally. I think that helped because I think if we didn't do that before we did our few other training takeovers, a lot of people would have taken more people would have taken it to heart, and that would have hurt us in all. So I think that it was a pretty smart idea from the teacher's side, and yeah, it was pretty fun. So
Yeah, it's a good strategy. And I also like the idea of switching over to pairing it with Anna and Frederick Douglass. And I'll ask a little bit about that in a minute. But I'm curious to you, Kai, about any difficulties that you had in the filmmaking process or any constraints that you had. Obviously, a pandemic and uprisings are one big one, but I would love to hear about your experience in that.
Not really. I think everyone was real like familial. Like it wasn't like Renaya, Zari, or Zahir were like performing for the camera at all. Like I had been around them significantly enough before that. So it felt really organic when I was around. Also because it would be mainly me. Like the only time we had kind of like a big crew set up was when we did the sit down interviews, and some filming in Zari and Renaya's home. And when we filmed outside in the snow, I would say I don't recommend filming in February in Chicago in a blizzard. That was a very long day that I'm very grateful that everyone still likes me, because that was very difficult, because we had to do COVID tests beforehand, everyone in their car and coordinating. So that was a whole adventure in of itself. But I think I was really fortunate to have a really strong relationship with like Bianca, the students, and also like the administration at VLA, where they were always like kept up to date with whatever developments existed in the film. And just like super grateful for the organizations in Illinois that like funded the film before we ended up getting funding from P&G and Tribeca. And then that we have like the opportunity to do community engagement events like this. And it's also been really nice to share the film in schools on the West Side. So like seeing, young folks' reaction in real time to like seeing the Blue Line Pulaski stop, which is something like they walk to, or they're riding on the CTA there, or like seeing Douglas Park, a place that they frequent. Like there's a portion of the film where two young folks riding on bikes are blurred out because we didn't get like releases, and then we played the film at Collins, and then someone's like, oh, that's my cousin. I was like, wait, I'm gonna give you my email address so that like I need to get in contact with him and we can like unblur him. So like things like that, or like there are other people where we didn't get release forms from, and like they were community members. So like I would drive around North Londo and like found folks so that we can make sure like their faces weren't blurred in the film. So things like that. And that we had a lot of support. Like this past summer, we did outdoor community screenings, which were really nice and cool. So like being able to see Zari's mom's reaction, seeing the film for the first time was really sweet, or like making sure the young folks can still gather because we have like the impact money for the film feels really great. And also to always like be a resource to other filmmakers as well, in terms of like what the process of making this film is, because there isn't like a crash course in how to become a documentary filmmaker. You kind of just like learn through making the thing. Um, and also this project was the first time and the largest amount of money I've ever gotten to make a film. So being able to really hire a lot of people that I've admired on the project, and then to be able to like hire them on other projects, like John Key did the music on the film, and he's now working on my friend Rosita Cox's next film, which Donnie is editing. So like building like peripheral community through filmmaking has been really nice.
Yeah, that's great. No, that's really amazing too. And I was wondering, in the conversation around the uprisings happening, and they changed the name of Lakeshore Drive and like all of these other things, and you all mentioned in the movie about not wanting this to be just a moment because of what was happening with the uprisings. How did that feel in having worked so hard for it and not being taken seriously, and then it finally happened? Like, was there excitement there? Were you a little disappointed at the timing of it? And Kai, I'm also interested to you, did the documentary itself help propel the conversation further and lead them to make that decision too?
I don't think the documentary played a position in it. Like there was a short that came out in 2018. I don't know if anyone from the Park District saw it. And then the emergency board meeting, we knew it was happening because of Pascal at Block Club had, I think, contacted Jennifer, who was one of the educators. And so we started filming, and I don't think they knew the film was like happening in this big way until like we needed release forms, or like I needed to contact the press person to be like, hey, can you let me know when the signs are being printed, because we want to like film it. Like I have made other films where I think my presence has like shifted in real ways, things that have happened to people's lives, but the Chicago Park District is like its own bureaucratic thing. I think they could care less. Like I have no idea if anyone else has seen it. It's like there are other more pressing matters. Like people have like been pushed out of their job because of like all the sexual allegations that have happened at the Park District. So I don't think they really cared what was going on with the film.
Yeah, definitely. I think they should host a screening of the film.
I mean, I did submit. We'll see. They have like a film festival like in the park. Like we couldn't meet the deadline to screen there last year, so maybe it'll happen
Yeah,
this summer. So if it does, that would be sweet.
that would be awesome. Yeah, for you all, how did you all feel about the timing of everything? Were you relieved when the campaign finally ended and they changed the name of the park? What was the weight of all of that feel like for you? You essentially made history. Yeah, sorry.
It was exciting for me because like in my time at VLA, it was usually you focus on a project this year, and next year when you come back in a different grade, it's a new project. Like we really didn't repeat the grassroots campaigns, but it was exciting for me to even continue after the second year, because I was like, okay, this is really happening. Like I'm not just wasting my time on something. Like it's really happening. And I was actually excited during the entire process of the filming, the researching, the changing our demands when we added Anna to the to it. I was actually really excited. When it happened, it kind of felt unreal because I kind of felt like I was gonna come back next day for another meeting on how we gonna try to persuade them to change this name. But it happened, and I don't know, it just didn't feel done to me. Like it felt like it was just a lot more stuff that was gonna happen. But I was actually pretty excited. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. Is that here? How about you?
I agree. I think the biggest thing was probably like being unreal, because I remember when it was like the final meeting, we were all on Zoom and they said we finally changed the name, and everybody was like woo, but nobody was like jumping in the air, none of the students, because like it just felt unreal. I guess it's the best way to explain it. We worked all hard to get to this point, and when we get to the point, we felt as if we weren't there. Like it was just like it was overwhelming. Obviously, we did celebrate later, but at the current moment, we were just overwhelmed, and I think that's one of the reasons why it felt so unreal. Because I definitely remember that day. even with the emergency meeting, I didn't think that we were going to change the name that day. I thought it was going to be a longer process than what it was. So that just added even more shock to it. And yeah.
Thank you. Renaya, how about you?
I remember that day, and I remember the day that I thought the park name was gonna be changed. It was like they had an emergency meeting, and I ended up going to Miss Pagan's house to get on Zoom and say a few things. But it's not the first time I was disappointed, but that was the first time it was like, man. And when I heard the news that it was like finally changed, I was like, oh yeah, we did it. So watch them come in, have another meeting tomorrow, and I'm gonna sit here through it. And it was tomorrow morning, and it hit, and I was like, man, and I was, Mom, I did it. And she was like, "Renee, shut up! It's too early for this."
Yes. No, that's wonderful that you I feel like after so long and having hit so many roadblocks, it almost would feel unreal. Like you're exasperated from the entire experience. How was it being filmed by Kai as well? Like how did it feel to be able to do this like and have someone watching you and like capturing all the moments? Like was it awkward or were you like, happy in front of the screen?
I think
Zaire.
what I actually, believe it or not, majority of the time we acted more relaxed and more like original when the camera was on than when the camera was off. And I just think that's because like we felt that she kept, it was like a safe space. Like everybody, it wasn't like a Hollywood TV show where you have to be at your best or things like that. But it was just like a normal thing. So everyone felt at home. So that actually made it even better because it made us all, we didn't have to worry about what the camera's doing, like things like that. We all just were focusing on our original thing, and it just planned out well.
Renaya, I saw you raise your hand.
Yeah, I wanted to say that when Kai was like walking around with the camera, I never knew when the camera was on and when it was off. So anything that Kai caught, like one memory that would always stick with me was when Kai just like sat the camera down in the lunchroom and walked away. And I could have swore the camera was off. And everyone at the lunch table was just doing crazy stuff and talking and laughing. And Kai came back and pressed the button on the camera. And I was like, oh, okay. The camera was never on. And like rewatching the video, I realized that the camera was always on. So I was like, yeah, Kai, you got me.
Yes.
I would say it was pretty weird at first because, well, like Zahir said, I agree with him when he said like Kai was like a safe space because we did get to know her before she started just coming in and recording us. So it was good, but when I didn't really feel like the camera was there when we were doing most of the work. But when I actually started like seeing the stuff on the news and seeing the little documentary and the little clips that I saw, I was like, that camera was really there. Like the camera was really recording me. I was like, was it that close to my face? Like just analyzing, like, did I see that? Was I there? Like it was just so weird because I don't remember the camera being there. I don't remember talking into a camera. I don't remember a camera being in my face. Like, which is actually good because I feel I get a lot of anxiety when I start talking in front of people or like looking in the camera. I'm just like, so it was good to not feel like it was there. It just came like natural. I was definitely myself during the entire process.
Yeah, that's good. That it was almost like the presence was there, but you were able to feel comfortable in front of it. And just for you, Kai, like as a documentarian, can you talk a bit about what it is to be like a Black woman working with women leaders and like centering these voices and whatnot? Yeah.
No, it's really cool. Like everyone just like gets along. Like I kind of have a saying that I probably would not make a film about people that I wouldn't want to hang out with outside of a camera because you are spending such intimate time with people. You're filming during a pandemic. You're in people's homes. You're in their cars. You're with people's children as they're canvassing. People have to feel comfortable with you being around. So I also definitely felt initially like a lot of just like weight of making the film because it was like I don't want to get it wrong or emphasize one thing, just because Chicago historically just like hasn't been represented like well and like fully. So it was important to me that it was a story like holistically told about like Black children and Black youth, because I haven't seen a film that's similar to this. Also, just like in the education space, like I think there are a significant amount of films about like Black youth in schools, but it's like they have a white educator, not like a Black teacher. Or like I haven't seen a film that follows a group of like Black students over a significant period of time. So that felt really important and really good. And just like being in community with other Black filmmakers to talk through the project with, like the producer of the film is Donald Conley, who's like from the South Side. And just like the team of people that I was able to build around me were
Hey, oh, I'm listening to something.
who were
How are you?
genuinely interested in the project.
Hmm?
Hi, Risa. It's all good. So yeah, I think as a filmmaker, I just like grew tremendously from the project.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that also shifting the focus, like I said before, to Anna Douglas and really trying to highlight women at the forefront, because so many of our stories are erased and we're not the ones who are we are on the front lines, but we're not the ones who necessarily get the limelight as well. Can Zahir, Renaya, or Zari talk about the shift in the strategy towards going from wanting it to be Frederick Douglass to including Anna Douglas behind it? Do you think that that helped push it a bit further to getting the name changed?
I think that was really like the big moment that we knew that we were in control, because I remember when we first were talking about Anna, it was really surprising because with all the books, autobiographies, biographies, everything that was written, I definitely remember reading one autobiography, and it rarely, I think he mentioned his wife maybe once because his child, I think it was like his child was talking or something of that nature, but it really didn't speak to her importance in her role and how she actually affected him. Because coming from a very great school, private school, a lot of times the only type of resources we have when it comes to books and things like that is predominantly written by men and things like that nature. So it's a majority sometimes is biased, sometimes it's not, but you can't really tell. So being able to like reach out and actually know that she had such a big impact on his career, like knowing that without Anna Douglas, Frederick Douglass wouldn't have been the Frederick Douglass we know today. Really showed her support, and I guess I'm pretty proud that we were able to give her credit.
Yes to that. Yes to that. There's always a strong woman or Black woman behind things as well too. What about for you, Zari or Renaya?
The shift I remember when shifting from only Frederick Douglass to Frederick and Anna was when we were somewhere outside, and Zari started saying her speech, or when we were in the classroom and Zari started researching about Anna Douglas. And at first I was confused until she came up with a bunch of facts, and I was like, why didn't he talk about her? Why was it always what he did and how he escaped, but it wasn't how she helped him, or it was her idea, and like something like that, giving her credit.
Yeah. And Zari, your mom even mentions, why didn't you tell me about Anna?
No, okay, so when we first changed, we talking about changing our demands, it kind of scared me because I had my mindset to just Frederick Douglass. I honestly was open to the idea of changing it to Frederick and Anna, but I got scared because I was like, they're giving us so much heat for one person's name. Now, how is this going to affect in the long run for us trying to put both of their names on there? So I just got scared in that moment. I still proceeded with the speech, and my speech, it was basically, yeah, all the research that I did during that class. I found out a lot of things that I didn't know to be true because I, like Renaya said, we originally thought it was just, Frederick. Okay, he escaped. He used his friend's sailor costume, but we didn't know that Anna gave him the hookup, So it was like it was good to actually learn. It's like behind the scenes, It was good to be exposed to that. So yeah.
Yeah. Renaya?
With me, I felt like when we decided to add the Anna's name as well, at first I thought we were running on their time, like we were waiting for them to reply, we were waiting for them to do this, we were waiting for them to reply to our emails and things like that. We were waiting for the response. And when we added Anna, I feel like they were now on our time. Like they were gonna be waiting for us and they're gonna be nervous about what we say next and things like that.
Yes, autonomy and having power in that, speaking the name for sure. I would love to hear about kind of what you all have done since then. Like, what types of activism are you all involved in now, or do you have any hopes or things that you want to get involved in the future?
Well, I can say that I have recently been a part in helping my school be open to other things, such as like, because I go to a Catholic school, so they have one mindset and it's like this and it's like that. So about like the gender reassignment and different sexualities. So I've been like helping with that. So we have a club called Gender and Sexuality Alliance Club. So like they meet certain type of days, and I'm not a part of the club, but I still like, for the teachers that are like a woman and a man, I'm just like, oh, it's not always like that anymore. So I just kind of like, reassure them that you can't just stick to your same way of thinking, especially since everything is changing around you and the different people, it's affecting different people differently, and you honestly have to be sensitive to certain things because you can offend someone easily, so you definitely have to be sensitive to certain things. But yeah, I've just been working on that mostly, and like the leaders at our school, like getting out teachers that just not right for us, and getting in ones that but yeah, that's mostly it.
What a stark difference going from VLA to a Catholic school and taking on a cause like that. That's really major. Props to you as well and the students who are behind that. What about you, Renaya? I saw you raise your hand.
I now go to I now go to a public school, Westinghouse, and my shift, it wasn't as bad. I feel like you have two ways to shift. Either it's you're now like you feel free or and you're happy, or you just feel like you chose the wrong thing. And I feel like I've chose the right thing because like my human geography teacher is more history than human geography. I don't even know what human geography is. But we talk more history, and at one point in time she was talking about the Indians and the Indians did this, and I was like, oh, so we're talking about India. It's like, haven't heard about this yet. And like I'm having my pencil and my paper. I don't usually take notes because it's just like stored in my brain, but it's India. And I was like, oh, I never heard about India yet. No, she was speaking about the Native Americans, and I was like, it's like it's not the same thing. So I had ended up saying something, and it just like went with, that's not really that. Christopher Columbus called them Indians because he thought he was in India, which was a stupid mistake on his part. And they was like, "Oh my gosh, that makes so much more sense. That's why he was asking for gold and doing." I was like, "Yeah." And everyone was just, "Renaya, why do you know this?" It's like I learned it in 6th grade.
Yeah, the fact that you have to educate people about that. I'm sorry that you have to carry that burden, but I'm glad that you felt enough to say something true. Yeah. What about you, Zahir?
So at my school, I have civics, so we do it and JRCC. So we have a lot of debates in both classes. I think it's just because coming from people, a lot of times, a lot of these kids don't come from public school, straight from middle school, straight to another public school, so they're not really exposed to this type of information. So there's a lot of debates, especially about like where people reside from, where they're from, like where their family tree. A lot of times, if you ask somebody, especially in my school, they're like, "I'm from Chicago, I'm from the South Side," things like that. But you don't really get into the nitty gritty, like if your family's from Senegal, things like that. And sometimes it's not really a problem. But when it comes to civics, when we're talking about American history, my teachers, like, they're fighting for our equal rights or things like that. An easy mistake, but when it comes down, like a regular person hearing that she's just talking as the whole of the United States of America. But sometimes I remind her, well, you weren't really a part of that United States of America because you weren't seen as a true human, 3/5 of a human being, and because of that, it changed her ideology on how she sees things, and so she doesn't like portray that narrative to the other students. So, yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you all so much. Kai, I have one more question for you before we ask any audience members if they have any questions, but I would love to hear more about the partnerships and like collaborations that you did and how it's been having the film be in film festivals and partnering with Tribeca and on BET. Yeah, like you said, it was the largest funding that you've gotten for a project. I'm sure that must feel really great.
Yeah, it definitely does, and like has helped to, secure other like relationships for like my filmmaking career. I think the screenings that I'm sorry that the sun is like right in my face. The screenings that I probably have enjoyed the most were we went to I went to Martha's Vineyard African American Film Festival, and we got to play before Summer of Soul. So to know that like Questlove has watched the film, or like that's a film festival that has like a big Black celebrity population, and to be like in a theater full of like Black folks watching my film was a really great experience, which is like very different from like a Tribeca screening, and just like really enjoying showing the film to like Black folks because they get it in a very specific way, and they laugh at certain points, like at all the parts that I laugh, or like Zari is like, all I gotta do is sign some papers, is like literally one of my favorite moments in the film. And yeah, I think the film was a part of Queen Latifah's program, so I got to go and visit her on set of The Equalizer, which was really cool and fun, and to see like how episodic TV is made, and like the assumptions I had about like how a TV set would be run versus like how her set is run, and like her production company, and her producing partner Shakim Compare, who's like a really cool and down to earth individual. And we're just like continuing to show the film to whoever wants to see it. Like I know in March, like we're doing a program at Brooklyn College with Cheryl Dunye. Like they're doing a program of screening like Black lesbian filmmakers, and they paired Change the Name with Watermelon Woman, which is like not a pairing I would necessarily like pick, but I'm like, okay, it's cool. We'll do an event together. And then also just like using the film continually like as a reflection moment. So like, Renaya, before we started the call, was like, oh, I haven't seen the film in a while. I'm interested to see like what new things that I see in it, or like how people react to it, and that they'll always have this film as a specific marker of time in their life. I think is something that's like really beautiful, to be always able to return to this like 10 to 13-year-old version of yourself. I think is something that's really powerful.
I think that's so beautiful. Like this is like a time capsule of a moment that you all did something amazing. So I would love to, as a last question from me to you all, Zahir, Renaya, and Zari, like what would you like people to take away from this? Like how do you hope to inspire other young people to create change in their lives, cities, or environments?
I think that more young people should start using their voice. Like, just because you're young don't mean that you don't know nothing. Just because you're young don't mean that you have a lesser chance of making something happen, because we accomplished what we did and we was like 10 and 11 years old, starting out. So I think that that is definitely something that young people should look at and say that, oh, I can do that too. Like they can stop doubting themselves and make it a goal of theirs to actually do what should be done. Like right from wrong. It's a clear line between right from wrong. So if you really want to, change that, then you definitely can. It don't matter your age.
That's the truth. Renaya, how about you?
I was gonna say that if you have something that you see as an injustice to society or something, you should find people who believe the same thing that you do and stick with them, because if you stick with people who don't believe the same thing, they're gonna pull you down with them whenever they feel right. If they feel you going too high on the stairwell, they're gonna trip you and you're gonna end up falling with them instead of you trying to walk with the people who believe what you believe, and they're gonna pull you up every time that you fall.
What a metaphor. Yes. Is that here? How about you?
I think the biggest thing for anyone who's aspiring to be a activist of any sort, specifically children or young adults, is probably to just stick with it. Stick with it, and be innovative. Like come up with new ideas. Like I remember one time where we had a 45-day wait trial, and they apparently lost the papers. That day I remember all we were doing in class was just preparing to give them the next one, just not giving up, being diligent, and I think that's probably the biggest thing.
This is true. And I hope we can all take away this energy that you all brought forth and just the diligence that you all have had just in the day to day. Like sometimes, especially the winter, it can be hard to get up and get motivated. But I think that carrying that energy with you in your daily life and showing gratitude and fighting for something that you believe in is super important. And it just takes effort and tenacity and being able to use your voice for something positive, because they are powerful. And I thank you all so much for sharing your story, for doing this work, and just for being the amazing individuals that you are. I'm so excited to see where you go from here. If that's what you were doing when you were 10, like the world is your oyster. So please give yourselves a round of applause. I'm sure you celebrated, but I want to celebrate you here, and we celebrate you at the Hyde Park Arts Center as well. So thank you so much. Cai, what's next for you? Like, got any film works in the process that we can keep in tune for?
At some point in the fall, the next film that I'm working on is going to be coming out. PBS is doing an episodic series on criminal justice reform. So it's 5 different directors in 5 different cities, and I'm doing a short piece based in Chicago on Beneath the Surface and police misconduct complaints that Black women have filed. So it'll be profiling Trina Reynolds Tyler.
Amazing. Yes. Well, thank you so much for sharing this story and documenting it as well.
Yeah, and I don't know the audience of if any of these people are like educators, but we made a curriculum for the film that people can look up. I think the website is VLAChangeTheName.com. And I can also, if anyone ever wants to contact me, I have like a website that has my email address on it, and I'm more than happy to be in community with folks who are interested in doing programming with the film.
Yes, thank you. We have a teen program too. Would love to have you come and talk to our teens. So yeah. I don't know if anyone has any questions or anything, but we have come to the end of our program tonight. Again, thank you so much. Some of the comments are saying they're so proud of you. Voices impacting change. Like this is the type of movement that we need. So again, thank you. And I hope that you all have a good evening. Thanks for spending your evening with us.